Today, the responsibility of power. Welcome back to Marvel America, where history meets heroism. And we're going to uncover, as we do every episode, lessons that bridge the past with the present. Each week, we explore a significant historical figure alongside a Marvel superhero to draw insights that can inspire us today. This week, we're looking at the enduring strength and responsibility of Frederick Douglass, one of the most powerful voices in the fight for freedom, and Spider-Man, the hero whose greatest gift and burden is his unbreakable sense of responsibility. Let's start in the 19th century, a time when slavery and oppression threatened the very foundation of American ideals. Enter Frederick Douglass, born into slavery but destined to become one of the most influential abolitionists, orators, and writers in American history. Douglass was born enslaved in Maryland in 1818. Even as a child, he faced brutality, but he found a glimmer of hope through learning to read, despite it being illegal to teach enslaved people. At age 20, Douglass escaped to freedom in the North, where he joined the abolitionist movement and became a powerful voice against slavery, using his eloquent speeches and writings to inspire others to action. As a child, Douglass's enslaver's wife, Sophia Auld, initially taught him the alphabet before her husband forbade it, believing literacy would make enslaved people unmanageable. Undeterred, though, Douglass continued learning to read by secretly befriending white children in the neighborhood and trading food for lessons. I love this story because it illustrates his determination to empower himself through knowledge, showing his ingenuity and resilience. Even in the face of severe obstacles, he did not see himself as a victim. He overcame adversity. Douglass described how after learning to read, he encountered the book The Columbian Orator, which contained arguments for emancipation. This opened his eyes to the injustice of slavery and planted the seed for his future as a powerful orator and activist. This, of course, demonstrates the transformative power of reading and how access to ideas can inspire revolutionary change. So if you haven't picked up a book in a while, do so. Who knows what lies in that book that may inspire you to become a better version of yourself. This next story is a great example of why something like martial arts can be so valuable. It's empowering. It gives you defensive skills. It also gives you confidence when you're faced with adversity. Although Douglass didn't have martial arts training, he did stand up for himself. At age 16, he was sent to a slave breaker named Edward Covey, who brutally whipped him. In a pivotal moment, Douglass fought back physically, resisting Covey's abuse. Although he risked severe punishment, Covey never whipped him again. This moment of defiance symbolizes Douglass's strength and refusal to accept oppression, inspiring anyone facing adversity. At age 20, Douglass takes the next step. He escapes slavery by disguising himself as a sailor and travels north via train and steamboat. Despite the danger of being caught, he successfully reached New York, where he tasted freedom for the first time. This journey showcases his courage and strategic planning, emphasizing the risks he took to gain his freedom. While planning his escape, Douglass forged a travel pass, a strategy that could have resulted in severe punishment if discovered. This act of creative resistance highlights his resourcefulness and determination. It's interesting how today kids can come up with fake IDs to get into a bar or to buy liquor at a convenience store. But they don't use that resourcefulness into something that is constructive and has a positive impact on society. This story humanizes him as someone who took bold risks to achieve a better life, relatable to anyone who has fought against overwhelming odds. Before escaping, Douglass worked in shipyards where he observed skilled workers and learned trades. Despite being forced to hand over his wages to his enslaver, he did gain skills that later supported him in freedom. This shows how Douglass turned every situation, even unjust ones, into opportunities for growth and preparation for his future. I remember as a kid, I had a summer job working at Subway sandwiches, and I saw myself as a victim. I felt, I'm going to college, I'm too good for this. While I could have been focusing on gaining talents of running a business, asking questions, inquiring, learning about the craft of running a real business. But I didn't. I just did my job and went home and thought about what I'm going to be in the future. Whereas if I focused on being the best version of myself in the present, that would take me at an accelerated pace to a better future. After escaping slavery, Douglass nervously delivered his first speech at an abolitionist meeting. Despite his nerves, though, his personal story captivated the audience, marking the beginning of his career as a powerful orator. This relatable moment of overcoming fear and finding his voice can inspire viewers to step out of their comfort zones, especially today when a lot of your career ambitions rely on you telling your story in front of people on social media. As time went on, the impact of Douglass's powerful speeches and writings was so profound that he even advised President Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War, pushing for emancipation and equal rights. Douglass's influence reshaped the fight for civil rights, and his writings, like Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, still resonate as testaments to human strength, resilience, and the power of the spoken word. Frederick Douglass's journey teaches us that power comes with responsibility, a duty to speak out for those who can't. His dedication to justice at great personal risk shows that true courage is using your voice and influence to fight for freedom, no matter the cost. Like Frederick Douglass, I feel it's my duty to speak out against injustices, especially those affecting our health. We live in a nation where chronic diseases are rampant, healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and our food system is broken. Yet, the solutions to many of these problems are within our reach if we prioritize health over profit. Today, I want to share my vision of how we can make America healthy again. I get fired up just talking about Frederick Douglass speaking out against injustices at great risk to himself. I think about our problems today. We live in a nation where chronic diseases are rampant, healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and our food system is broken. Yet the solutions to many of these problems are within our reach if we prioritize health over profit. I'm getting on my soapbox for a minute. Look around. Our diets are filled with refined sugars, starches, seed oils. These ingredients dominate institutional food served in schools, hospitals, nursing homes, and prisons. How can we expect to thrive when the very places meant to care for us serve the lowest quality food? We need to overhaul institutional meals, replacing processed junk with whole, nutrient-dense options. Imagine the impact if schools and hospitals served real, nourishing food instead of desserts and overcooked carbs. It's not just about what's convenient, it's about what's right for our health. Think about hospitals today. You've got patients with heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and they're getting fed garbage. And what do the doctors do? They just give them more meds instead of focusing on a clean, nutrient-dense diet and regular exercise and focusing on helping them with their mindset. That way you can take the pharmaceutical drugs out of the equation in so many instances. Not all, but many. I feel so strongly about this issue. When we had the pandemic and were locked down, I created a one-man movie called Political Variance. It was a comedy satire that shined a spotlight on how saving our soil is the best way to save our country. Healthy soil is the foundation of healthy food, people, and a thriving nation. By rebuilding our soil through sustainable farming practices, we can address not just health and nutrition, but also environmental and economic issues. This film is my way of using humor and creativity to start an important conversation about the future of our country. The backbone of our food system should be small, sustainable farms, not subsidized monocultures producing corn, soy, and wheat for junk food. Instead of funding these raw materials for processed snacks, let's redirect subsidies to support farmers growing grass-fed meats, organic veggies, and fruits. It's time to empower the small farmer and make healthy, fresh food accessible to all. Think about this. If Thomas Jefferson, who we discussed in an earlier episode, got in a time machine and came to America right after the pandemic, something tells me he would have been in charge of shifting towards a more decentralized agricultural system with a greater emphasis on small, sustainable farms that could enhance food security and resilience against future disruptions. A transition like this would require supportive policies, investment in local food systems, and consumer commitment to sourcing locally produced foods. If you remember, in Thomas Jefferson's time, his principles of decentralization, local resilience, and environmental stewardship are strikingly relevant in addressing today's agricultural challenges. Jefferson was what I like to call an agrarian idealist. He wrote that those who labor in the earth are the chosen people of God. He saw farmers as virtuous, self-reliant, and fundamental to preserving liberty. A decentralized agricultural system aligns with his visions of widespread land ownership and small independent farms. What if we shifted to a decentralized agricultural system? This could be seen as a way to honor his vision while adapting it to a contemporary time. Did you know companies can label ingredients as safe without third-party testing? The result is a flood of harmful additives to our food, from synthetic vitamins to low-quality iron. What's crazy is America spends over $4.1 trillion on healthcare annually, yet we rank among the worst in terms of health outcomes. Why? Because our system profits from treating diseases rather than preventing them. Healthcare reform has got to focus on prevention, education, and empowering people to take control of their health. From increasing awareness about the importance of vitamin D to pushing back against junk food sponsorships and dietitian education, we need a cultural reset, basically. This is why I've launched my YouTube channel, to educate, inspire, and to empower people to take control of their health. Together, we can make America healthy again. But this movement isn't just about me, it's about all of us. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in. Like Frederick Douglass, I believe our gifts, our knowledge and voice must be used to serve others. What do you think needs to change in America to make us healthier? Share your thoughts with me, and let's start a conversation that leads to real change. Now, let's jump into the Marvel Universe and look at Spider-Man, a hero whose powers come with a great responsibility he can never ignore. Peter Parker's journey is one of courage, sacrifice, and the belief that his gifts are meant to protect others. By now, most of you know Peter Parker's origin story. He was an ordinary high school student like you or I, raised by his Aunt May and his Uncle Ben. After being bit by a radioactive spider, he gained superhuman abilities, but initially, he used them for his own personal gain. Peter's life changed forever when his Uncle Ben was killed. This was due to Peter's choice to ignore a chance to stop a criminal. This tragedy gave rise to his famous mantra, "With great power comes great responsibility." Balancing life and heroism. Spider-Man constantly juggles his responsibilities as a superhero with his everyday struggles as Peter Parker. School, relationships, work. Unlike many heroes, he's driven by a sense of duty to serve, even when it costs him personally. He's of course known as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He prioritizes the everyday safety and well-being of his community, fighting to protect the innocent and to live by the responsibility he feels for his powers. Spider-Man's journey reminds us that with any gift or privilege comes a duty to use it for good. Like Douglass, Peter learns that staying silent or uninvolved isn't an option. They both make sacrifices to protect others, showing that the true weight of responsibility is often invisible to the outside world, but monumental for those who bear it. I started working out with weights in college, because quite frankly, I was sick of having a physique of a teenage girl. Over time, through hard work, a positive mindset, and healthy lifestyle habits, I transformed my body and gained newfound confidence. This journey initially was self-serving, but as time went on, it sparked a strong desire to help others achieve similar results in the gym, allowing them to enjoy the incredible benefits of taking care of their bodies, more energy, boosted confidence, and an overall sense of well-being. As a personal trainer, I quickly realized that many people are deeply set in their ways and resistant to committing the time and effort needed to transform their bodies and become the best versions of themselves. To reach a wider audience and share my passion for fitness, nutrition, and personal growth, I decided to launch a YouTube channel dedicated to helping others achieve their goals. Like Peter Parker, I believe that the gifts I've been given and the knowledge I've gained over the years are meant to be shared to serve others and make a positive impact. Both Frederick Douglass and Spider-Man have strengths, and they also have flaws. Frederick Douglass, his commitment to justice was his strength, but it also took a heavy toll on him. Speaking out against slavery put him at great risk and made him a target. yet he never shied away from his responsibility, even when it meant personal sacrifice. Douglass was deeply committed to his public work, often at the expense of his personal relationships. You hear that a lot with people who reach great heights. His intense focus in abolition and reform sometimes left little room for his family. For example, his marriage to Anne Marie Douglass, the woman who helped him escape slavery, became strained over time. While Anna supported his cause, she struggled with the demands of his public life and his frequent absences. Douglass faced criticism for his close relationships with other women, particularly his assistant and confidant, a German journalist. While there's no definitive proof of an affair, let me make that very clear, the closeness of their bond led to speculation and strained perceptions of Douglass's loyalty to his wife. I've come to realize that I too struggle with honoring loyalty as a value. It's not that I don't see its importance, it's that my personal goals and principles sometimes conflict with what loyalty requires. In the workplace, for instance, loyalty often means a strong commitment to a team, an organization, or mission. Over the years, I've worked a lot of side hustles, but I've never fully committed to any one of them. Let me put it this way. If there were an Employee of the Month award for any of these side hustles I've done over the years, I wouldn't be the one getting it. My priorities have always been focused elsewhere, on building my own dreams rather than advancing someone else's mission. That said, I do hope to become my own employer someday. When that time comes, I know I'll be 100% committed to the mission I create. I'll also want employees who share that same passion and dedication, who are loyal to the vision we're working toward together. And I also want to note, over time I have grown, and more recently I've been much more loyal to my side hustles. After all, we're all part of one big community, and if I don't serve others to the best of my ability when I'm working under them, what good am I? And how can I expect others to help me with my mission? And I have to keep reminding myself, as I pursue my passions, there are inevitably going to be times where I fall and stumble, and I'm going to need others to back me up. And so I better respect other people's missions and back them up to the best of my ability when I can. Another reason I struggle with loyalty is because when it clashes with other values, like honesty or fairness, I choose honesty and fairness every time. If staying loyal means compromising my integrity or doing something unfair, I can't justify it. To me, being true to myself and to what's right is more important than blind allegiance, whether it's in the workforce, with the family, friends. Spider-Man's dedication to his duty as a hero often isolates him and creates distance between himself and those he loves. His sense of responsibility to protect his community means constantly balancing his personal life with his role as a hero. Like Douglass, he makes sacrifices because he believes his power is meant to serve others. Peter's overwhelming sense of responsibility is both his greatest strength and his Achilles heel. It makes him a hero, but also creates internal conflict as he struggles to balance his dual life. This flaw, of course, resonates with many people who feel pulled in different directions by competing responsibilities, making Peter Parker one of the most relatable superheroes. His flaw teaches a valuable lesson. While taking responsibility is admirable, recognizing limits and allowing others to help is equally important for long-term success and happiness. I often find myself keeping people at a distance. When I'm honest with myself, I know that the more intimate I become with someone, the more they rely on me to be dependable and supportive, even during tough times. While that's a beautiful part of relationships, it's also a big responsibility I'm not always eager to take on. I feel selfish at times. I have big goals in life that demand time, dedication, and focus. The idea of being responsible for someone else's well-being and safety sometimes feels like a weight I'm not ready to carry. It's not that I don't care, it's that I worry about losing sight of my own mission. This is something I've been working on for a long time because I so often hear people say at the end of their lives, it's the people that mattered, not the accomplishments, not the money. I love looking at the parallels and lessons we can learn from historical figures and Marvel superheroes. For instance, Frederick Douglass and Spider-Man show us that responsibility and courage often go hand in hand. Their stories teach us that living up to your values can be a heavy burden, but one that brings profound meaning and purpose. Both figures show that real strength lies in using our influence, whatever it may be, to lift others up. Here are a few ways to channel the inner Douglas and Spider-Man within you. Embrace your responsibilities. Fulfill the duties that come with your talents and privileges. Don't run away from them. And recognize them. Serve your community. Use your skills to make a positive difference, just as Spider-Man protects his neighborhood. Stand for justice. Speak up when you see injustice, like Douglas did, even when it's hard. I remember I was at a baseball game and there was a guy dropping F-bombs behind us all day long. I'm with my nieces and nephews who were little kids at the time, and I never said anything. And it's interesting, that stuck with me for a long time. I should have taken the alpha position and silenced that guy. Let's take a moment to get a global perspective. What the heck was going on in the rest of the world during the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, when Frederick Douglass was working with Abraham Lincoln to fight to free the slaves? In 1861, this is the time when Italy begins to unify as a single nation. In 1867, you had the abolition of serfdom in Russia. Tsar Alexander II emancipates millions of Russian serfs. Shortly after the Civil War in 1871, we had the unification of Germany. Led by Otto von Bismarck, Germany becomes a powerful, unified nation. From 1881 to 1899, European powers were carving up Africa during the imperial expansion. Oh, in 1886, France gifts the Statue of Liberty to the United States to celebrate the centennial of American independence, honor the nation's shared values of liberty and democracy, and strengthen their enduring friendship. The statue symbolizes hope, freedom, and the abolition of oppression. It also reflected France's desire to inspire democratic ideals and project a progressive image during a time of political transition. The statue remains a powerful symbol of freedom and unity worldwide. Who doesn't know about the statue? 3 years later, in 1889, that's when the Eiffel Tower was completed, and this was built for the World's Fair in Paris. It becomes a global symbol of innovation. So what was going on in pop culture during Douglas's times? You had literature and storytelling. Charles Dickens, his novels like Oliver Twist and A Christmas Carol captivated audiences with their social critiques and vivid storytelling. You had the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin. This anti-slavery novel became a cultural phenomenon, fueling abolitionist sentiment. You had Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic tales and poems like The Raven in 1845. Mark Twain produced The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. In the opera, you had composers like Giuseppe Verdi and Richard Wagner. These guys were widely celebrated. And unfortunately, minstrel shows, which were racial performances, were a major form of entertainment in the 19th century, and these highlighted the era of cultural biases. You had songs from Stephen Foster like Oh Susanna and Camptown Races. Look 'em up, they were hugely popular back then. In fashion, the Victorian style was popular. You had elaborate dresses for women with corsets and tailored suits for men. The men had top hats while the women had bonnets. The technological marvels of the time. You had the penny press. These were affordable newspapers like the New York Sun, and they made information and serialized stories widely accessible. There was the telegraph, invented by Samuel Morse in the 1830s. This revolutionized communication. In the steam locomotive, railroads transformed travel, inspiring stories and songs about adventures and progress. In baseball, you had the first organized club, the New York Knickerbockers, formed in 1845. Boxing and wrestling, you had prize fighting and Greco-Roman wrestling. They gained popularity as spectator sports. Traveling circuses like P.T. Barnum's showcased exotic animals, freak shows, and acrobats, thrilling audiences. While Frederick Douglass was fighting for emancipation, there was the women's suffrage movement. Leaders like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Stanton gained prominence, and their rallies often drew large crowds. Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein was actually published the year Douglass was born, and it continued to captivate audiences for years to come, blending science and horror. Then there was Jules Verne's novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which introduced imaginative tales of adventure and exploration. Let's not forget magic lantern shows. These early slide projections offered visual storytelling and were a precursor to modern cinema. Alright, time to get into trivia. As always, I'm going to give you a list of questions, give you some time to think about it, then I'll reread all those questions with the answers. Let's see how you do. First, what famous phrase about power and responsibility is associated with Spider-Man? You guys better know this one. Which U.S. president did Frederick Douglass advise on emancipation? True or false? Spider-Man's web shooters are a result of his spider powers. How did Frederick Douglass learn to read? How did Frederick Douglass escape from slavery? What position did Frederick Douglass hold in Washington, D.C. after the Civil War? Who was the first actor to play Spider-Man in a live-action feature film back in 1977? If you get this, you're a Spider-Man fan. What is the real name of the Green Goblin, Spider-Man's iconic foe? Which Spider-Man actor made his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut in Captain America: Civil War? In what comic book issue did Spider-Man make his first appearance? The Black Spider-Man costume first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 252, published in May 1984. The issue was titled Homecoming. But in what comic book was the origin of the black suit explained? All right, let's see how you did. What famous phrase about power and responsibility is associated with Spider-Man? Say it with me. With great power comes great responsibility. Which U.S. president did Frederick Douglass advise on emancipation? Abraham Lincoln. True or false? Spider-Man's web shooters are a result of his spider powers. That's false. Peter Parker invented his web shooters. How did Frederick Douglass learn to read? He actually taught himself, defying the laws against educating enslaved people. How did Frederick Douglass escape from slavery? He disguised himself as a sailor and used borrowed freedom papers to travel to New York. He helped recruit troops for the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment. What position did Frederick Douglass hold in Washington, D.C. after the Civil War? We didn't discuss this in the episode, but that was the U.S. Marshal of the District of Columbia. Who was the first actor to play Spider-Man in a live-action feature film? That would be Nicholas Hammond. And then we had Tobey Maguire. And then James Garfield. And of course, Tom Holland is the latest Spider-Man. What is the real name of the Green Goblin, Spider-Man's iconic foe? Norman Osborn. Which Spider-Man actor made his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut in Captain America: Civil War? Tom Holland, of course. In what comic book issue did Spider-Man make his first appearance? Amazing Fantasy number 15. That was back in 1962. The Black Spider-Man costume first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 252. That was back in May 1984. The issue was titled Homecoming. But what comic book did we get the origin of the black suit? The origin of the black suit is explained in Secret Wars number 8, when Peter Parker acquires the alien symbiote on the alien battleworld. This symbiote later becomes Venom, one of Spider-Man's most iconic villains. And by the way, Secret Wars number 8 holds a special place in my heart. It was one of the first comic books I ever purchased. It was part of a 12-issue miniseries, which I loved. Time for Name That Quote. I'm going to give you 2 quotes, and you're going to tell me who delivered each quote. Was it Frederick Douglass, or was it Spider-Man? Here's your first. No man can win every battle, but no man should fail without a struggle. Great quote. And this quote is very similar, so if you get it, impressive. If there's no struggle, there's no progress. Once again, the first quote. No man can win every battle, but no man should fail without a struggle. That was Spider-Man. And it was Frederick Douglass who delivered the line, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And I also like this one from Frederick Douglass. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. So let's work on enhancing our education system. Time to challenge your mind again. Here are your 2 Socratic questions. The first, we all know how Frederick Douglass was a champion for fighting slavery. He supported women's suffrage too, however. He did this even when it caused tension within the abolitionist movement. Some argued that focusing on women's rights would detract from the fight for black men's rights. If you were Douglass, would you have supported women's rights knowing it could divide the abolitionist movement, or focus slowly on racial equality? How would you reconcile competing social justice priorities? And I've got to pose this scenario to you. In Peter Parker's early days, he chose not to stop that burglar when he had the chance, feeling it wasn't his responsibility. That same burglar later killed Uncle Ben, teaching Peter the importance of his powers and responsibilities. If you were Peter, do you think you would have stopped that burglar when you had the chance, or acted as he did, believing it wasn't your problem? How would you define your responsibility to others? I hope this conversation about two great men, Frederick Douglass and Spider-Man, has served as inspiration for you to take with you on your own journey. Now take a moment to reflect on how you can embody the resilience of Frederick Douglass and the responsibility of Spider-Man in your own life. And remember, real heroism isn't about glory. It's about the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. Be brave, be responsible, and inspire others by taking on the challenges that come your way. Don't forget to leave a review, and remember, I love you.